Yeah, family, that's a video I want to share with you about the United States Corporation and the Africans and how the United States treat the Africans as nothing, you know what I'm saying? Curse of Ham, you know what I'm saying? And the Africans are still asleep and think that they even mention the Bible and Bible morals, I mean, Bible principles when they're dealing with these people to their own determinant. They already don't even listen to the Africans, she said. That they just, the Americans just, I'm going to listen to you guys to hear it. Yeah, I'm just trying to, you know, put you in the perspective of what's going on in here. Yeah. So you have the Africans complaining that this is going to change now. They're not just going to sit in a table and having the United States corporation coming and telling them what to do, and they just bowing and doing it. Curse of Ham, because they say that she claims that the opinions of Africans don't matter. Nobody want to know at all. Yeah. And you got these African Americans talk about Africa being the root of the whole society. Yeah, but you got your which means you got your sons, yeah, the son, or you got these strangers coming and telling you your opinion don't count. How are you, God? Let's see what's going on, people.
I used to repeat it all the time during my tenure. What really is behind the failure of effective engagement with Africa is the disrespect of the Africans. That's where the problem begins. If we cannot accept, if the United States cannot accept Africans as equal partners, if the United States, for example, let's look at this particular meeting, this particular summit. There was no defined agenda. There has never been defined agendas whenever they meet with African countries as individual countries. It's always the United States setting the agenda, the United States setting the policies, and the United States telling the Africans about the policies. That is no way to have any meaningful engagement. If you take, for example, the fourth POCAC meeting that was held between China and the African heads of state, way in advance, the issues were clearly defined. The agenda was going to focus on trade. It was going to focus on aid. It was going to focus on investments. The African heads of states were engaged in the discussion, in the planning. The outcomes were clearly defined with a way forward in terms of follow-up. It was a fruitful meeting that addressed the issues that needed to be addressed between not only African countries individually with China, but also Africans collectively with China. There is no published agenda. There are no issues that have been presented to the African heads of states.
And to add to that, I want to say that this got to stop. Africa always needs a hand from somebody. If it's not America, it's got to be China or Russia, but somebody's got to get a piece of you for you to subsist. There's something wrong about that. Yeah? Because if they're helping you for all this time, since I was born, I see Africa getting a handout. I see Africa getting money, everybody, even America, singers and Hollywood and all these guys putting money together to heal Africa. They got AIDS, they got money together to heal Africa. They got this, they're always coming to rescue them. This is too much. Yeah, because it's the only type of people I see that this thing keeps happening. Nobody else in the world lives in a handout like that, and they need somebody to come and help them. And they claim that this is the biggest continent out of all continents in the world.
Have not been asked to engage in terms of creating the agenda and making sure that when the African heads of states come to Washington, the outcomes, the issues to be discussed are going to be meaningful outcomes with follow-up and deliverables that are going to be beneficial to both. It remains a one-sided conversation with the United States telling the Africans the agendas and the policies.
Hold on. These Africans
are not
that's the
on
problem
the table.
here. The Africans are too soft. You see that? She's going to make a deal that's going to be beneficial to both. No. If you're going to help me, you got to help me. It's got to be, 70-40 or something. 70-30. 60-40. Because you got to help me to get up there. No, we're going to not be cutting deals like we're the same. We're not the same. Because if I'm a curse of Ham and I'm down and you're going to help me, you got to pay. You got to give me back what you've been doing all this time, giving me false helps. These Africans need to get on them, and they don't know. But she's right.
On the table to discuss issues pertaining to us, wherein lies the problem. And the reason that continues to be the case, what underscores that is the disrespect for Africans. I repeated it, I complained about it repeatedly. It is a serious problem. The United States must understand that Africans are not going to take it anymore. If you don't treat the Africans fairly,
that's right.
United States is going to see itself slowly losing ground to China, to Russia, to all other nations, because without respecting the Africans, without treating the Africans as equal, without understanding that exploitation and abuse of Africa simply cannot continue. This meeting, this summit, is going to be yet another gathering with no outcomes, no deliverables until the next summit. I'm sorry, but the disrespect of the Africans is at the bottom of it all. Agenda for this meeting should have been set out in advance. Africans should have been involved. Without the involvement of the Africans in these discussions, this is a useless meeting. I'm sorry, but that is the fact.
No, I am very grateful for your candor, and it sounds to me, I think there was a lot of criticism of the last summit like this under President Obama, that there was like no follow through. And, it's one of the big questions I'm asking is, how do you make a big bang summit where everyone comes over? It's like checking off the box and say, okay, we've done Africa, now we can move on to other things.
But hold on.
How do we...
But Obama supposedly was Pan-African and all that, no? Somebody can help me with that. Yeah? Because if he was, and if he was the president of the United States, he didn't do nothing to help these people there. They still need help. And they still now trying to deal with all the other continents to give them help, including America. But America just want to treat them like Ham, because that's what the Bible says, that they are Hamites, that they're supposed to be cursed of Ham. They got to be their servants. But she said that they're tired to be servants and that they want to be treated as equals. Yeah, don't forget that. But, they still religious. That's where they're going to fall. Book.
Make that something that's a more sustainable and a more continuous engagement of the United States with Africa. And what I'm hearing from you is, frankly, a lot of disappointment and, a lot of pessimism about what may come out of this summit.
Well, the point of the matter is already nothing is going to come out of it because it is a one-sided conversation.
Hold on, people. Hold on.
Where is the agenda? The agenda should have been published way in advance. The African leaders should have been given an opportunity to also state their position so they can come up with an African position that can then be discussed alongside the American position. So the fact that it is a one-sided conversation that is yet going to be another useless meeting with no outcomes. But again, I'm going to keep emphasizing the reason this is happening is because there is a disrespect for the Africans. There is a general feeling that we don't need to hear from the Africans. Their opinions do not matter. That wherein lies the problem. Why were the Africans not consulted? Why were the Africans not part of an agenda? Why was there not even an agenda like what happened during the FOCAC meeting with China? Those are some basic issues. No head of state. President Biden would not pick up and go to meet with any other leader in the world without an agenda. That simply doesn't happen.
Right.
So what makes the U.S. think that they can engage African leaders without an agenda? Come to Washington, let me tell you what I want to do for you. Come to Washington, let me tell you what you need to do in your country.
The thing is, the Africans need to have their own agenda, people. You cannot go to do business with these guys and you have no agenda. This is crazy, people. And which seems the African always come with no agenda. And these dudes, they always come with an agenda and they cut their deals and they win. And the Africans are left always in the same place that they were found before. Because they're not coming with no purpose of nothing. They're too soft and too religio. That's what happens.
Whole game.
Right.
It's not going to work anymore. To be honest with you, if I'm to speak the truth, I hope a lot of heads of states don't come. Because it is an insult. It is an abuse of the African leaders. It's a disrespect of the African leaders. Where is the agenda? Please respect the African leaders. Do unto them what you would want done unto you.
So
it's really as simple
African
as.
leaders,
Let me ask you a question. You mentioned China and how China approaches this. I'm interested in what China gets so right. But is there a blind spot there? Are there problems in the China-Africa relationship from your perspective?
He plays that he doesn't know what China gets so right comparing to America comparison. Well, you don't know what they get right. They just do straight business. They don't come with an agenda behind that. That's what she's mentioning. But this dude is going to act like he don't know.
Let me just hit the nail in the head and deal with the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room.
Yeah.
Racism as well plays a very important part. The disrespect of the Africans also goes back to a lot of the people who work in the U.S. government, not all of them, but there's a significant of them who automatically assume that Africans do not know what they're doing. Africans need help. Africans need to be told what to do. And racism is also at the bottom of it all. We need to address the individuals who are going to be visiting Africa, engaging Africa. They must understand that Africans are equal to them. But when one goes to Africa with a sense of superiority, wherein lies the problem, because you're not going to engage those...
Well, the Africans need to grow up, okay, with that, trying to have people now realize that you are equal to them when you are the most religio than them. And according to the Bible, you have the curse of Ham. So, remember the Chinese years back, they were nothing. Everybody speak bad about the Chinese. They all say, oh, product made in China is bullshit. Nobody don't buy shit from China. But now everything is made in China. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Including them, they need help from China. But a few years back, there were Chinese going to their land looking for jobs. You know? It's just Africans have no spirit to do no business, man. And they have no, that's why everybody gets there, just take out of the slaves. They enslave them. Who
are going to come to the table as equals. You go in feeling superior, come back feeling superior. That is not an issue with the Chinese. The Chinese are coming in. The Chinese, yes, if you don't negotiate with them and they win the game, then that's your fault. But they don't come in feeling superior. They understand that Africa has something they need. So they will come to the Africans. They will come and make sure that they let the Africans know that you matter to us, that our relationship with you does matter. That you don't get that feeling with the United States. You get the feeling that there's this sense of superiority, that you Africans, you ought to be glad that we are engaging you. You ought to be glad that we are inviting you to come to Washington. That sense of superiority, it has to change. Whether it calls for the United States to retrain their people as they engage Africa, but it is that which really goes to the bottom of why the engagements are not going to be as effective. They must take a page out of what Africa is doing. Let me say this. Chinese people didn't used to be that way. But they quickly changed their strategy. When they realized that the game they were playing was not going to work in Africa, they changed their strategy. And that's why, like I said it during my tenure, I'll continue to say it again. If this was a basketball game, the United States need to call for timeout. This is a new game, and it requires new rules of engagement. The United States must, first and foremost, make sure that racism is out of the picture. Africans are just as smart as anybody else. Africans are equal. And until we engage
Hold on. She
all
don't
this
mean
means-
racism. She means the curse of Ham. You understand that? Because they all do business with them and everything, but they see themselves always as superior. Because the religion of God said that they are inferior to them. They are Hamites, Canaanites, and they have no rights to nothing other than being exploited, other than being destroyed. And they're supposed to beg. They're supposed to be servant of servants. They're supposed to serve them. Yeah. They're supposed to be their lords. That's why the American corporation go there talking to her like they are their lords. And the Africans get offended still and don't treat us like a damn slave. Well, stop calling Jesus. That's what happens.
These meetings, all these conversations are always going to be useless. And it goes back to the individuals who are going to be at the table with the Africans. So the US also need to address the issue of racism and make sure that the people engaging Africa, their minds are clear and they accept that Africans are equal.
Tell us about Pan-Africanism. Tell us about what Africa, the states in Africa are doing to trade, to connect, to move their agenda forward proactively, no matter what the rest of the world is thinking about it.
Absolutely. I have to say, if you were to go back to 1963, when our Pan-African fathers came together in the hopes of creating an Africa that spoke with one voice, an Africa that
the Africans do is mentioning racism. Yeah? Because first off, just mentioning it is is bad for not to the slave master. To them, it's bad to them to even mention the word. Yeah, because the word is a curse on them. When they mention this word racist, they're saying that they are not equal. There's a race struggle. You understand that? They are inferior. And the dudes come with racism. She's saying, you guys don't come with us with racism. You shouldn't be doing business with these dudes talking about these words, like you're being offended. You straight business with them, and you should not, even care about bringing your emotions to the table. You should be straight business with these devils. You can't be to the table showing them that you are hurt. That's why they got all these like, oh, you should be happy that we're here to help you, because they know they can hurt you. You show your weakness to them. Yeah, but you're still going to church and you are still the son of Ham. So you're still in the curse. That's what's
one
up
minister that
with
had
the
one
Africans.
central bank, one monetary fund, one stock exchange, and an Africa with one customs union. We failed at that over the years. But finally, 2 years ago, they approved the AfCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is a policy that saw Africa coming together in one particular area, that we are now speaking with one voice when it comes to trade. Yes, its implementation is a monster. Yes, its implementation is work in progress. But you can say of the issues that our Pan-African fathers met to discuss in 1963, finally, over 50 years later, we are able to accomplish the first one, which is being an Africa that's going to the world as one customs union. The spirit of Pan-Africanism, it has taken us a long time to really begin to come together to dismantle the Berlin Conference, which, of course, for those who think, oh, Berlin Conference is a thing of the past.
She said the spirit of Pan-Africanism, people. That's a problem. This is why, if you're going to do business with that, I can help you.
As long as we have a country called Togo, as long as we have a country called Congo-Brazzaville, Eswatini, Malawi, those small countries, even Nigeria or the big ones, Kenya, Egypt, Morocco, they cannot survive on their own. As long as we're talking about the little-bitty individual African countries, we are never going to realize the dream of a united Africa that speaks with one voice. And until we dismantle some of those borders, until we begin to wake ourselves up as a people.
You are very, very, very far. It's not a bad thing, but you are very, very, very far of anything called United Africa. Okay? Because I told you there's a lot of zombies in there for the confusion.
Until we begin to realize that the colonizers and the rule of divide and conquer left us feeling inferior. Supremacy, white supremacy was introduced from the very onset when the colonizers came to Africa.
Why are you going to mention that?
To believe
Hold
that
on,
everything
man.
African was bad.
I'm tired of these Pan-Africanists talking about racism and white people coming all the way to Africa and abusing them there. I can't stand that. Yeah? How you in your own continent, in your own land, and that shit happens. Because African people are so cute, so like, what I was gonna say. Everybody that comes, they licking their food, they taking them everywhere, they giving them the best seaside, they like good servants, yeah? And everybody take advantage of them. Because, I mean, there's something wrong with you. But you don't look, if you look like after other people, if you look after other people so good, but if you look after your people, the way you look after other people, if the Africans, yeah, at least looked after their own people, the way they look after other people, they will be way advanced. You know what I'm saying? This is one thing that leaves them behind. The second thing is that they are programmed with the Pan-Africanist stuff, which is a program that these same guys that they're trying to avoid them. How can you say you want to avoid all of that, but you keep spitting that, you keep spitting that? You don't respect your land. You don't respect Africa. You don't respect the Africans, because you're saying that you are offended about the white man. Africa is bigger than Europe, man. Why would you be worried about what some white man did or think or said and be publicly speaking about this stuff in this place, man, where you know that there's young people listening, there's older people listening, that most Africans are listening, and they've been programmed by what you're saying. Because if you're saying these things at this position, they are going to respond to that. They are going to regurgitate that. Yeah, and you don't really want them to be regurgitating things like the white man beat you and put you in this condition, and you're so sorry of yourself, and you don't want to ask him for help because he's racist. You're just humiliating your people, basically, by saying all of that. To me, that's what I see as a viewer, in my perspective, you know what I'm saying? And this is what they do wrong in the first place. They're too soft.
Everything European was better. And we still continue to suffer from that mentality. So yes, while we demand that the West and those who don't look like us Africans treat us equally, realize that we are human beings just like they are. We too, as Africans, we have a lot of work to do.
Why do you need their approval? Why the fuck do you need the approval of these dudes? I don't get it. They need to validate you? Really? This is what, that's why Africans are poor. This is why their land is rotting. This is why they are under the curse of Ham. Other than the religion, they already put them in this condition. As I told you, according to the Bible view, they are under the curse of Ham. There's no way out.
Where we must also believe, truly believe, that we are equal to everybody else on earth, and that we are capable.
No, you're not.
That
Until
also
you have
is a
Bible,
disease
you're
that
not
we need
equal.
to realize as Africans. Let's wake up and realize that white people are not superior to us. Chinese are not superior to us. We're just as good as anybody else. That is a serious challenge because
You
we
see
still have
the
people,
nakedness of your
even
dad.
when you look at issues that we could stand up as a people and push back. You see ministers from the Western world going to Africa, and they basically can. I've seen them say some of the most ridiculous things to the Africans, and instead of the Africans pushing back and saying, "Hey, hold it, this is not going to fly," instead the Africans are afraid, just inherently fear of the white person, for no good reason whatsoever, except that we have been programmed to feel inferior. So on an individual basis, we continue to speak the gospel of truth.
So
we continue to
she
shed light
knows that
as
the
to
Africans are being programmed to feel inferior and to act inferior and to be to manifest that inferiority. That's what happens. If you can tell that, and you know exactly what's happening in Africa, that they've been programmed to be feeling inferior. Being that herself, man, the whole video, talking about how they feel hurt about the racism, they feel hurt about all that crap, that don't matter. It's about Africa, it's about the money that you want. You want to cut deals, you want to make business with these motherfuckers. You don't dare to talk about your feelings or the feelings of Africans. The feeling of Africans should be about building Africa and what they have in their vision. That's all they should care about, not what some motherfucker in another continent thinks or do. But that's what they go. And then they go to these meetings with all this emotional charge. Of course nothing gets done. Of course these African kids continue dying and nothing gets done. The kids have nothing to do. There's no organization of nothing. There's no order. And we sit here every year talking about the same motherfucking thing, the racism. And we already explained and broke down to you what it is, that it's nothing with the program, that it doesn't exist. No baby is born racist or nothing. It's a program they put in your mind of hatred. It starts from the Bible that teaches you the God is what color the God is the best God, and any other color is the devil, and then they suppress you, they put your curses on you, you know what I'm saying? You've seen your daddy's nakedness, then you cursed, then they all look you down. And this has even nothing to do with color, nothing. It's more to do with your religion and the mental state that you live. You don't know the mental state that you live. You don't know the Bible, that you always praising this God, calling yourself Ham all over Africa. No, you're reaping what happens. That's what happens.
Brainwashing that the African has been put through, wherein lies the problem. When you look at what is being done at the World Bank, for example, the Bretton Woods institutions, the frivolous loans, countries that have never defaulted on their loan repayments, and yet they're still given large interest rates. Why? Countries like the United States that don't need any help, they get loans at 0 interest rates. You look at the issue. I'm glad President Biden, I hear he's going to be talking about having the AU as the 51st member of the G20. Well, let's also take it to the next level. Let's go to the United Nations. Let's have Africa, 1.4 billion people. They need to come to the table. Let's African Union be the 6th member of the 5-member UN Security Council. You can't just totally disregard 1.4 billion people because you've gotten away with it for centuries. Well, guess what? Game is over. Africans are waking up. Africans are beginning to realize and understand the game that has been played. Unfortunately, we don't have that critical mass of people who are continuously going to speak truth to power. The good thing with the story of Africa is ours, we are coming from a position of righteousness, a position of truth, a position of facts. Those are constants. They don't change. Let's continue to give the world an overdose of our truth. But at the same time, while we are doing so, and demanding a world that is fair, that is just, and free of racism, bigotry, and hate. We must also work on our own development and our own awakening as a people.
Talk to me a little bit about how Africa can take advantage of its intellectual connection and assets to entrepreneurs who have left but may want to help Africa back, because this is one of your major initiatives.
If they left, they don't matter.
Absolutely. The brain drain that started over 400 years ago, when the best and the brightest and the fittest were taken out of Africa forcibly, and that is when the brain drain started. I want to make sure that is very clear. And when we talk about African diaspora, we're talking about all people of African descent living outside of Africa. Let's be very clear. African Americans, they are Africans who were forcibly taken out of Africa, plus the continued brain drain, those who are later immigrants who left Africa running away from famine, from wars, in search of greener pastures. The end result is, as we speak, Africa has a serious deficit of expertise. However, the good news for Africa is that we have a very young, intelligent, vibrant population that need opportunities. So when we can marry the age group of young, intelligent Africans with the expertise coming from the diaspora, we can see an Africa that can propel itself.
But if you have so many Africans that left Africa and they have skills, how come you didn't set up a program to have these people back and to bring it all back and to educate these kids and give them a profession or teach them some type of thing that gets them to do something in society? Give them something to do, to learn and to do. Get some technical and skilled people from outside. Why don't you invest in that? What deals are you really cutting with these guys? Of millions, but nothing is changing. I mean, you're not getting in your two legs and doing your own business because you're saying that your hands and foot are chopped because you don't have professionals to teach your people nothing. So you have a lot of young people, but they don't know nothing. What are you going to do with that? Just because they're young doesn't mean they can produce anything if they have no knowledge of anything, and you can organize nothing because you haven't got the professionals that you've been making work and lost them all. Didn't think about the future, what's going to happen, that you will end up with nothing in the house. These Africans, man. And what do you think is going to happen now? What are you going to do? They're going to give you what? Money? It's not going to change nothing. That's why the situation never changes. You're never going to stay on your, sustain on your 2 feet and do your own business, because every decade there's a religious war in Africa and everything goes to waste. Everything they build in 5 years, in 10 years, they make a war and the whole thing disappears. And then they restart again with new investors. The game goes on and on and on, and the whole thing is corrupt, I think.
Security concerns and
the whole thing, I'm going to forward it now because I lost.
Conference, which of course for those who think, oh, Berlin Conference is a thing of the past, think again. As long as we have a country called Togo, as long as we have a country called Congo Brazzaville, Eswatini, Malawi, those small countries, even Nigeria or the big ones, Kenya, Egypt, Morocco, they cannot survive on their own. As long as we're talking about the little-bitty individual African countries, we are never going to realize the dream of a united Africa that speaks with one voice. And until we dismantle some of those borders, until we begin to wake ourselves up as a people, until we begin to realize that the colonizers and the rule of divide and conquer left us feeling inferior. Supremacy, white supremacy was introduced from the very onset. When the colonizers came to Africa, we were taught to believe that everything African was bad, everything European was better. And we still continue to suffer from that mentality. So yes, while we demand that the West and those who don't look like us Africans treat us equally, realize that we are human beings just like they are, we too as Africans we have a lot of work to do on a personal level, where we must also believe, truly believe, that we are equal to everybody else on earth, and that we are capable. That also is a disease that we need to realize as Africans. Let's wake up and realize that white people are not superior to us. Chinese are not superior to us. We are just as good as anybody else. That is a serious challenge, because we still have people, even when you look at issues that we could stand up as a people and push back. You see ministers from the Western world going to Africa, and they basically can, I've seen them say some of the most ridiculous things to the Africans. And instead of the Africans pushing back and saying, hey, hold it, this is not going to fly, instead the Africans are afraid, just inherently fear of the white person, without any no good reason whatsoever,
because
except that
white.
We have been programmed to feel inferior. On an individual basis, we continue to speak the gospel of truth. We continue to shed the light as to the brainwashing that the African has been put through, wherein lies the problem. When you look at what is being done at the World Bank, for example, the Bretton Woods institutions, the frivolous loans, countries that have never defaulted on their loan repayments, and yet they're still given large interest rates. Why? Countries like the United States that don't need any help, they get loans at zero interest rates.
That's what happens.
You look at the issue.
That's what happens when you do business with the devils. So when you sit there and you do these deals with them, you got to talk about the interest rates that they're going to fuck you up later. You understand that? Because they come around, oh yeah, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. And then later, they fuck you up with the interest rates, and you end up worse than you were before, because you can't afford these interest rates after. And then, what was the point of the whole thing? See? So, it's not productive. It's not, these deals are not there to make Africa a better place. These deals is like they got the hole in their pocket with this interest that she just talked about. So the Africans are in a very bad situation, people.
I hear he's going to be talking about having the AU as the 51st member of the G20. Well, let's also take it to the next level. Let's go to the United Nations. Let's have Africa, 1.4 billion people. They need to come to the table. Let's African Union be the 6th member of the 5-member UN Security Council. You can't just totally disregard 1.4 billion people because you've gotten away with it for centuries. Well, guess what?
We heard that.
Game is over. Africans are waking up. Africans are beginning to realize and understand the game that have been played. Unfortunately, we don't have that critical mass of people who are continuously going to speak truth to power. The good thing with the story of Africa is ours, we are coming from a position of righteousness, a position of truth, a position of facts. Those are constants. They don't change.
Okay,
Let's
but
continue to give the world.
Africans are not coming from the position of knowledge. Okay? They're coming with all this righteousness, which is darkness, all that they call righteousness and light and all that gospel. Yeah, it's God's spells. Yeah, their language is stripped, and they don't know that. They speak these words, they internalize these words, and they manifest these words. It's a witchcraft, I told you, of the highest order. And these people are wrapped inside that spell. So the way they're trying to do it, there's no way you're going to deal with the devil like that and you're going to, be successful.
An overdose of our truth, but at the same time, while we are doing so and demanding a world that is fair, that is just, and free of racism, bigotry, and hate, we must also work on our own development and our own awakening as a people.
Talk to me a little bit about how Africa can take advantage of its intellectual connection and assets to entrepreneurs who have left but may want to help Africa back, because this is one of your major initiatives.
Absolutely. The brain drain that started over 400 years ago, when the best and the brightest and the fittest were taken out of Africa.
I'm going to stop that because this is all political
stuff,
and I don't want to be going too deep into the political stuff. So I'm going to resume in this video on you. You know what I'm saying? You got these Africans that are in a lot of trouble, and are getting themselves in more trouble than they should. You know what I'm saying? Because they think they need help from somebody that they think hates them, somebody that don't even see them as equals, but is willing to sit on the table with them, cut a deal with them. If somebody is your enemy, you're gonna cut a deal. What do you think is going to happen? And then you be crying that you paying your loans and everything, but motherfuckers still overcharge you when he has no need to that, because it's his account, because he can. He do that to remind you that you are his slave. You see? So no matter what business you do with him, he's going to do that. Yeah. So if they're gonna, I'm not gonna tell you what to do, but it's up to you Africans what you're gonna do and what you think is right, because you've been doing whatever you want since then. And now I see that you have nothing to work with. You don't have professional workers, okay, in that African corporation. You claim there is no unity between countries itself. There is no African unity, but you in the Pan-African, calling Africans from America to go home, when the whole entire Africa is not even united. You should first united Africa, because there's no unity in there, you said. Therefore, the spoilers don't come around, and you always end up in the same situation, the curse of Ham. You need to know what you believe, what religion you make a covenant with, what bank you make an account with. All of that will count. Who you do business with, all of that will count. And if you don't have your own business plan, if you don't have your own vision, which I don't see Africans having no vision of nothing, they just cut deals of money. And then there's dudes that come around, take the money, and you see all these dudes running around with a lot of African money, and nothing being built or nothing. They just got a lot of women, maybe they travel around the world, they go to Europe studying, they go to America, they go anywhere spending that money. But in Africa itself, nothing is happening. You never see that money or nothing. That's what happens in there. Yeah, totally corrupt. So, until they filter all of that thing that keeps them in the curse of Ham, because it's a curse, all of this that they do, whatever corruption they do, whatever how they carry their business, leads them to be in this condition of curse of Ham. And the covenant that they have with Jesus, of course, is the main plate of the whole curse. But I
want to make sure that is very clear. And when we talk about African diaspora, we're talking about all people of African descent living outside of Africa. Let's be very clear, African Americans, they are Africans who were forcibly taken out of Africa, plus the continued brain drain, those who are later immigrants who left Africa running away from famine, from wars, in search of greener pastures. The end result is, as we speak, Africa has a serious deficit of expertise. However, the good news for Africa is that we have a very young, intelligent vibe.
Why did they leave Africa and go to other places, and now they have all this deficit of organization, of people with skills? Yeah, people that probably was in place, and now, because of your words of greed and religion, they all disappeared. And now you are left in this black hole of a lot of young people with no skills. You're in a nightmare now. And your enemy, anything you ask them, they're gonna rip you off with the damn bank charges.
Vibrant population that need opportunities. So when we can marry the age group of young, intelligent Africans with the expertise coming from the diaspora, we can see an Africa that can propel itself to take its rightful place on the world stage.
You
like it
can't
once was.
count
So
in
yet,
something like... She's counting in something coming from the diaspora, people. That's nothing. Nothing is coming from no diaspora. Or is it? No, there is no such thing. They're not really realistic. It's a diaspora. Look, man, it doesn't exist. The black Americans, so-called Indian Americans, originals, I already told you, they are not Pan-Africans, and they are not going to pay you nothing. So why would you be making plans with the egg under the chicken that don't exist? These Africans need to get real in what they believe and want. It's just
the diaspora
simulation,
are an important component of Africa's development. Make no mistake about that. All the African leaders are fully aware of that. All the African leaders are in full support of coming up with programs to make it easier for the diaspora to move back. We want to look at diaspora who can come to Africa, not just focus on a country that you were born in, but if you are a person of African descent, Africa should matter to you. Africa should be your problem. You must own Africa's problems, understand it, and participate in the development of Africa. For when we have a stable Africa, it's ultimately...
It's all beautiful to hear that, but if you're an African and you're thinking to go back there, what's the guarantee that nothing happened to you when you go back there? Because it's full of, the place is full of lions, wolves, and hyenas. Who's going to look after you? Who's going to... How do you know? Why you end up without them? Because you killed the ones that were there before, and many had to run away, and now you end up with them, without nobody. And now you want people to go back there, but what guarantee you give that your business is not going to go back to the rotten fields of low vibrational fields?
Also correlates with an African American who is anchored. It correlates with an Afro-Caribbean who is anchored. It correlates with an Afro-Latino who is anchored. Currently, descendants of the formerly enslaved, they're like a ship without an anchor. The wind blows that way, here they go. Until they're anchored by being accepted by Africa, until they're anchored by participating in the development of Africa. The Jews do it, the Chinese do it, the Indians do it, the Irish do it, African Americans together with the continental Africans. We must make sure that we work together to participate in the development of Africa, because the development and the building of the Africa we want, it is our responsibility first and foremost, and ours alone. Others are welcome to come join us. Others are welcome to help us.
I bet they told you in many of these African countries that they had to run for their lives. You know what I'm saying? Didn't you know that you needed them back then? That they had to run for their lives, and now you need them. Now you need them to go back. Or you need to now call your enemy that gave you the guns to shoot them to go there, help you now, to give you, what, teachers, to teach your children? You know what it's going to look like? How degrading that is? You're going to have them coming there to educate your children. And adults too, the whole thing. It's degrading. It's got to be a curse of Ham.
Others are engaged as equal partners, but we must own the building of the Africa that we want as a united front of the African diaspora.
Well, I want to make a deal with you, Ambassador. I want this to be a start of a conversation with you that we have many other times. I think it's a very important conversation, and I'm grateful to you, Ambassador Adikana Chihombori Kwao, former African Union diplomat and founder of the Africa Diaspora Development Initiative. Thanks for your candor, and thank you so much for being with us today.
All right.
Thank you for having me, and keep up the good work. These are messages that we must continue to put out, because the average American is not aware. The average European citizen is not aware of what the various Western governments are doing. The atrocities have been going on for far too long. They must come to an end. And your program is doing a great job in getting these messages out. We must inform it.
But they're not going to come to an end as long as you act like that, like, because we see these kids, man. We saw these kids dying. We saw these kids in need. We saw these kids without water. We saw these kids without home. We saw these kids without care. You know what I'm saying? We saw these kids living in sewage, waters to drink. You know what I'm saying? and you sit here talking all that garbage and worried about what these guys think, about racism, about your all feelings and all that crap, while these kids are dying. So I don't think that's righteous of you and of, so, because I didn't know who she was until now. She just said she's something to do with African diaspora, which is Pan-Africanism and all that. I didn't even know that, people. It just came out. And I was like, what? Yeah, but that's what it is. But these are the people running the business in Africa, people. The Pan-Africanism diaspora that we expose, that they, you know, who created them, what's up with that, you know what I'm saying? What's up with with the history, what they've been teaching, you know what I'm saying, the juices they've been promoting, and all that crap. And then come around talking about, yeah, you know, they're not there to be told what to do. But I didn't tell you, I didn't see you telling them that when they did the juice. You didn't tell them, don't come around here telling us what to do. If we don't want to take the juice, it's our fucking business, nigga. No, you were in bed with them, and now you're acting like they treat you inferior. You are inferior. You have the curse of Ham. As far as I'm concerned, in Africa, they all under the curse of Ham, and the whole thing is a joke, okay? You can speak all you like, but I know that next year, in 10 years, Africa is the same place.
Our citizens.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So what's the bottom line? The smart money's on Africa. That's where the most interesting global action is going to be. Demographically, the West and much of Asia are aging, while Africa has the youngest crowd on the planet. Within a few decades, much of the world's global middle class is going to come from Africa. And Africa's going to become a stickier place for its brilliant innovators
You're lying, because it's got a lot of young people with no skills. So what are they going to build there? You can give them tools, but they can't build much. How are they going to be mediocre? And they already have a plan for them, you know. You see the devil there telling them already that they're going to be having middle class. And they already have a plan for them for what's going to happen there in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years. They already have a plan for that motherfucking land that you see there. It's a curse, people. It's worse than we thought. Yeah, just think about it. It's deep. It is worse than we thought.
Stay, rather than racing off to Europe or the United States. Sure, China and the U.S. will both remain engaged in Africa, but less and less on their terms, and more on the terms of African nations as they rise and become more powerful in their...
So now we got all these nations that are coming around. They all want a piece of you. They won't leave you live alone, do what you want, and call them if you need. No, they gotta come together to do some shit that nobody asked them for. Yeah, this is what keeps this world and shapes this world. It's not people no more. It's corporations moving around and doing bullshit.
Own right. That's the story of unstoppable Africa, rising not because of what nations outside the continent are doing for it, but what it's doing to chart its own course. And that's the bottom line.
Okay, whatever.